Hello, and welcome back to the Self Love Club. I hope you are having a great Sunday if you're listening to this on Sunday, or a great day, whatever day you're listening to this. I hope that your day has already started with moments of joy and some peace. I think that's one thing I'm hoping and wishing for all of us is just peace. This year has just felt a little chaotic for myself and maybe you, so peace definitely goes a long way. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm Mary. I am the host. I am also Mary of Mary Young, and Mary Young is the brand that powers the Self Love Club. Self Love Club has been around actually for a few years now, which is kind of crazy. It originally started as more of a digital space. I think it still is. I'm going to be honest with you. We haven't done anything in person in a while, but it really is about you, your attitude, your community, our community building, all around self-care and acceptance, because there needs to be more open conversation around self-care, growth, self-love, and obviously acceptance, because we're all in this journey of life together. If you listened to the episode that came out just a few days ago, you know that we have a new monthly intention because it is the month of June and we are exploring something new. So this month we are talking about speaking up, which I think is really important as I'm speaking right now. And as I'm sure many of you have been in situations where maybe you haven't spoken up and you had wanted to, or you wished you would have spoken up, but it just didn't end up happening. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into speaking up, understanding how to do that, putting some things into practice. This month is going to be a little bit more work in some ways, but like the good work, like the work you're going to see results from. Because it is a bit more practical, I want us to not just talk about the concept of speaking up, but actually put some things into practice. I know this is something that I've been working on and I've been learning throughout my life is the importance of speaking up, not only for myself, but for the relationships I'm in, to make sure that I feel in tune with what I want and I'm able to vocalize that to the people that I'm around. Oftentimes when we are uncomfortable or maybe we're shy or we're even afraid, we don't speak up and we don't say what we actually mean, what we want to say. And we sort of lose our connection to our inner voice and we don't actually remember how to hear it, how to decipher what's going on in our mind and find what's true to ourselves and find that inner voice and then be able to use it to speak up. And that happens to a lot of us because it's easy to feel overwhelmed in situations and not use our voice and not speak up. But we really need to find that inner voice in order to understand what we need, what we want, and to be able to communicate it. Before we actually start practicing the speaking up part, it's so important to understand the inner voice that we have. So that is sort of your truest self, your deepest desires, your dreams, your honest responses, things like that. That's what we really want to get in tune with before we can start vocalizing and speaking up. So our inner voice is sort of, I guess, our guidance. You could also call it our highest self, your conscience, or even your intuition. Whatever you want to call it, honestly, it's totally fine. Call it whatever feels right for you. But our inner voice is different from our inner monologue, and that's something that's really important to understand. Oftentimes, our inner monologue can fall more so to the negative side of things. It can be harsh, maybe self-deprecating. This inner monologue is often impacted by society, how we're told to present ourselves, to behave. Maybe things people have said to you specifically in certain words that they've used for you has shapen your inner monologue, and that inner monologue isn't always what's right. And I know when we talked about Flourish in the month of May, you may remember that we talked about the power of our inner monologue. So we did talk about how to harness your inner monologue, especially when you hear it going into a negative space, and kind of pull it back on track and get it into more of a positive inner monologue, a positive place, a positive voice. We want our inner monologue to be positive. But that's what our inner monologue is. And so getting into what our inner voice is, that's different. Our inner voice is our truest self. It knows right from wrong, what's best for us, and what our deepest desires are. That's something that I really love is our deepest desires. I think that's such a personal way to express how in tune you are with yourself is those desires that maybe you haven't vocalized, maybe you haven't written down, but you know in your heart that that's what you want. It's just who you are. It's your core. And when we are able to connect to our inner voice, we really are connecting to our truest form of ourself and seeing ourselves for who we are and finding confidence 100% and wholly within who we are, rather than looking towards others for that confidence or that reassurance or affirmation that we are enough or doing the right thing. So a great quote from Jennifer Racciapi. I hope I'm saying your name properly, Jennifer. Apologize if I'm not. Her quote is, "Our inner voice is the voice of truth, our unique voice of truth that comes from within. Simply put, it is our innate intelligence." I love that. Innate intelligence. So when you listen to your inner voice, it's not wrong. It's not lying. It's not influenced by something else. Your inner voice is true to you, and it is truly intelligent because it is as connected as you can be with your deepest desires, those wants, those wishes, those dreams, what you know you're okay with, what you know is right for you. And finding and hearing and being in tune with that inner voice is super intelligent. It's one of the best things we can do for ourselves. It's going to better your connection, not only with yourself, but all the relationships you're in, and give you confidence to go through and navigate life knowing you're on your path and you're not being influenced by everything else. Because let's be honest, there's a term called influencers, and every day we're all being sold or told or influenced in some way or another. So if this all sounds like super amazing to you and you think it's so cool, but then you start to ask yourself, I don't know if I have an inner voice. I don't know where it is. I don't know how to hear it. That's also so normal because we don't really teach anyone how to find our inner voice. It's not something we're taught in school, just like taxes. So if you know how to do taxes, good job. But like taxes, our inner voice takes work to understand. But it is personal work, and it's not as serious as doing your taxes wrong. You can't do the learning of your inner voice wrong. All that you're going to be doing is giving yourself the time and space to explore and find that inner voice and get connected with it. Because if we don't know our inner voice, we're not going to be able to speak up properly for ourselves. So before we start actually speaking up and using our words, we're going to slow things down a little bit. So the world we live in, no surprise, is very busy. I'm sure many of you are juggling 1 or 2 jobs, friends, family, a household, pets. There's so much going on in our day-to-day that it's so hard to feel like we're ever staying on top of it, but also to even slow down and hear what's happening inside of ourselves. There's so many distractions going on, and there's so many good distractions in some ways, but a lot of times we're not giving ourselves the appropriate time and space to not only connect with ourselves, but also to connect with other people. And I think this is one very realistic area that I know it's something I've been working on, is how to listen to other people, like actually listen to them. So this is something that I would say we all have heard. Maybe we've heard in conversation about, don't just hear what someone's saying, listen to what they're saying. But it's a great way to practice listening to others in order to be able to listen to ourselves. So when it comes to listening to other people, I'm going to admit this, I'm impatient. I want a response right away when someone and I are in conversation. When someone's talking, I may, most likely, I'm already thinking about my response, what I'm going to contribute to this conversation. And some very bad days, I'm thinking about something completely different, and I'm not even listening to what that person is saying. And that's not right. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to our relationship. And it's also not fair to the growth and understanding of how to be in relationship with someone else. I need to be able to fully listen to someone else. So when it comes to listening to people, can you relate to that? Preparing your answer, maybe thinking about something else, getting distracted. And if you can't relate, amazing. Please share your tips with me, because I've definitely been working on it. And one thing that I've been doing is using my inner monologue. Yes, that's the other voice in our mind. I use my inner monologue to remind myself to focus, be present, and truly listen. So a lot of you may know this. I speak to myself in third person with my inner monologue quite often. And I'll tell myself, Mary, be present. Mary, just listen to what they're saying, be here for this conversation, and be present in this conversation. And when I do that, I truly do become present, and I don't respond right away. I give myself a beat to digest what they've said and then respond with my thoughts, my ideas, my concerns, whatever it may be. But giving myself time to digest what they're saying instead of already planning my response while they're still talking is teaching me how to actually listen to them and be present in that sort of obviously conversation, but also in that ability to truly hear what they're saying and to take it in, digest it, hold space for it, and be just as engaged in that conversation as I really want to be. So by doing that for other people, that actually allows us to learn to listen to our inner voice, because we're giving that energy, we're giving that time and space for someone else that we are going to have the ability to do the same thing for ourselves even easier. So I know I've mentioned this before, and I will most definitely mention it again, but I am a big advocate for journaling, for writing, for putting your thoughts and emotions into words. I know I've said it, but if you need a suggestion for a good journal, I'm your girl. I will help you find some great paper products. It's like my favorite thing ever. So when it comes to obviously connecting with your inner voice, you may be wondering, I still don't think listening to someone else is enough for me. That's not really going to take me to that level of hearing my inner voice. I agree with you. It's not. And like I said a little bit earlier, this one is going to be a bit of work. So we're going to get to work on how to do this. This is one thing that has helped me so much in being able to listen to my inner voice, and it's something called morning pages. Yes, it's in the morning and it involves pages. If you guessed it, you are writing pages every single morning. So what you do is the first thing when you wake up, you don't go to your phone, you don't start thinking about your to-do list and all the tasks you have to accomplish. You sit down with a notebook or even loose paper, whatever is easiest for you, and you write 3 pages of whatever you're thinking. Whatever you're thinking. No, you don't need to have a process. You don't need to connect the sentences. There doesn't have to be any points made. This is really an act of releasing that stream of consciousness and taking away any boundaries or expectations or parameters for showing up in a certain way. So this should allow you to truly start to find that inner voice, and it is going to feel so weird. I like to say it feels sticky because you'll get a couple words out and then you'll kind of get stuck. Maybe you'll get a couple more sentences out and then you get stuck again. And that's okay. That's exactly what's going to happen. The first couple of days are going to feel pretty painful. They're going to take a while, but I highly recommend sticking with this for at least 3 weeks and just seeing what happens, seeing how you feel, and obviously reading it back to see what you were thinking and what your inner voice was saying. One thing for me, when I did this almost 2 years ago, I was letting my stream of consciousness go, and I was just writing and writing and writing. And I ended up realizing I was writing about things that were my deepest desires. And these were desires that weren't influenced by what society said that I needed to have or needed to achieve, or how to keep up with what my friends were doing or my peers. It really was about me. And one thing that I came back to multiple times was that when I moved, because this was before I was moving to LA, is I really wanted to have a apartment, a home, whatever it may be, whatever category, but windows that had trees right outside my windows. This is something that I had no idea was in me. I would not have known where to pull that thought from. But because I was releasing my stream of consciousness, I was able to identify something that I really wanted. And for some of you listening, you may think that sounds foolish because you probably have a lot of trees at your window. But since living in Toronto, living in condos and, in the concrete jungle, yes, there's trees, but they're not right at your window. So I really wanted trees like right by the window, branches and leaves that would move in the wind, and the light would sort of flutter and reflect into my apartment from that and get that sense of nature, but in my home. And I can attest that it did work. This is also another thing called manifestation. I'm not going to get into that today. That's a whole other monthly intention, and I can go on and on about it. But understanding and hearing my inner voice and knowing that that was something that was so deep within me that I needed, and that I wanted, I was able to speak up and make sure that I was prioritizing that when I was looking for apartments and places to move to. And I do have trees right outside my living room window, my dining room window. And when I sit at my desk, not here because this is not my desk, when I sit at my desk, I get to see the trees and the leaves move in the wind with the sun slowly creeping in. And it is so beautiful. And it's even more beautiful knowing that that was a deep desire of mine that I was able to uncover through listening to my inner voice and that I've been able to bring to life. So I hope you give three pages of journaling, 3 pages of writing every morning a try. And if you're, laughing at me while I'm saying this, thinking, no, there's literally no way I'm going to do that. Okay, I have an option B for you. I will raise you another choice. We obviously live in a busy world. There's a lot of things going on. I am an advocate for listening to podcasts, but I know one thing about me is I will listen to a podcast at every chance I get. I almost have no moments of silence in my day. Yes, I can blame the city for part of that because there's always traffic or sirens or something happening, but I also listen to a podcast when I go for a walk, when I'm cooking dinner. You best believe when I'm cleaning the toilet, I'm also listening to a podcast. So I'm always putting sounds into my mind and I'm not giving myself any silence. We as a society have no moments of silence anymore, and we need that silence to find ourselves, to find that inner voice and really connect. So the challenge for you is when you are going for a walk, or maybe it's when you're driving to work, you normally would take phone calls or listen to music. I challenge you to just be in silence. Again, it's going to feel sticky and you're going to get annoyed and agitated and probably bothered. But all that other noise that's happening around you, whether it is, cars and traffic or the sounds of birds and nature, it's eventually going to sort of fade into a white noise sound, and you're going to start to hear yourself more. And you're going to get more connected with yourself. And again, get more in tune with that inner voice. Don't try to guide your thoughts and get back onto track or think about what you should be accomplishing, but really let yourself and your mind and that stream of consciousness go. Take away all boundaries and parameters and expectations and just let yourself feel and think and not question where it's going. The more you do this, obviously the easier it'll get. So again, the first couple days are going to feel sticky and not fun. But as you continue to do this and give yourself that silence and that space to truly hear yourself, you are going to feel so connected and really in tune with that inner voice, and obviously even more intelligent because our inner voice is super smart. So as I mentioned, before we start actually speaking up, it's so important to find that inner voice, that confidence within ourselves, because in order to speak up for ourselves and know that we're standing and staying true by what we want, we need to know what that is to our core, and we need to know ourselves fully. So I hope this week and weeks over this month, you spend time doing these actionable items to try to hear that inner voice. And this is fun. This is kind of like your first bit of actual speaking up homework. If you listened to the podcast that came out a couple days ago, I dropped some very exciting news. And if you didn't listen, I forgive you. You're here now. But we now have a feature where you can send me a voice note. So this is basically like, I don't know, a voicemail, a voice note, a voice message, whatever. You get to speak up and speak to me about whatever is on your heart and your mind. So ideally this month, it might be around speaking up and talking about maybe some struggles you've had with speaking up in the past, some questions you have, whatever area you want to focus in a little bit more in on, or maybe you want to share a story about when you did speak up and you felt really, really empowered and happy with speaking up for yourself. I love to hear good stories. I think it's so important to celebrate all of our wins, big or small. So if you have any speaking up stories you want to share or questions, head to the show notes. There's a link for you to go submit a voice message that I will play on a future episode. So yes, you're going to have to come back and listen. I know you already want to, but you'll have to come back and listen. And I will be answering some of those questions. Depending on how many we get, I might actually just do a bonus episode dedicated to all those messages. So definitely feel free to speak up and ask questions about this. Ask questions all the time. I love a question. This is a community. We're all in this together. And I just want you to remember you're not alone in this thing called life as we're trying to navigate it and understand it. We're all going through these things together, and you are seen. You are a part of this journey. We are here together, even though I'm alone right now recording, but we are together in our energy and our spirit. And I'm so excited for this intention this month. I really think this is something that a lot of us can use and will continue to use in so many different areas of our life and chapters of our life. So I hope you have an amazing day, and remember to love yourself first.